County Jail. No bail has been issued. And Jeanette, I go to you. Swagner91 says, wonder why he has cuts on his face. I didn't notice that. And Jeanette, did you notice anything of his appearance? And also, I'll throw this out to you as well. When he was arrested, his booking photo, did you notice anything outward about his appearance? Anything that would, be a bit strange considering what he is accused of doing?
I didn't, not from the booking photo. I mean, he looked a little more, pensive in the one from Latah County than the one from Monroe County, Pennsylvania. But I did not notice these cuts, but I did receive a text while we were watching that from somebody saying, wow, it looks like he got into a fight. And I said, oh, really? I texted the person back. I didn't see that. So the person then responded, maybe it's just some, shaving injuries. It was our understanding that he was going to be kept away from other inmates in the jail. So I think we'll have to kind of rewind and look at that again to see what we see. There
is a dog that clearly wants to have a say in this conversation, and I think that dog should be heard in this conversation. But hey, I don't make the rules. Bobby, let me throw it over to you.
Jesse, I saw like a line that looked like a cut on his chin, and then more of a round bruise or a blood spot here. Mm-hmm. There was like one linear one and one kind of round, like dime-shaped one there that I kind of noticed on his face. You see that under his jaw is the kind of dime-shaped one, and then the front of his mouth, you see a linear kind of scratch or something.
Well, I mean, it's speculation what that could be. I mean, I didn't notice that before. I don't know what the jail conditions are like. I mean, I don't know what it could be from. I would imagine, Bobby, he's under constant supervision, probably under suicide watch. I'll throw this out to you as well because we didn't get a chance to elaborate on before. Again, postcards from protests said killing someone with a knife is a very messy way of killing, and the killer killed 4 people that way. There's no way there's no forensic cross-contamination. In other words, it seems to me there's probably more evidence here, whether it's in his house or in his car or on his clothes. There's got to be more here considering the gravity of this attack, right, Bobby?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what the questioner is asking, and I think it's probably correct, is that he probably carried the DNA. So if you consider 2 different murder sites, because 2 victims were together in one place and 2 victims were together in another, he probably carried some of the DNA from the first murder scene to the second murder scene. I know the whole place is a murder scene, but when he killed the first 2 victims and then he attacked the second 2 victims, there's probably DNA from that first killing in the air of the second killing. But the lab is very good at kind of parsing that stuff out. It takes a while in the laboratory setting to take all of those samples, blood samples, other DNA type samples, and kind of separating it all out. That's why I was so surprised that the case was resolved this quickly with the suspect, because it takes time to separate blood and different blood samples from one particular sample and into different DNA profiles. And I think the lab has done a good job probably at kind of showing the DNA as it travels through that house.
And it's my understanding they came forward with this without even finding the murder weapon. So, Ann Jeanette, I'll throw 2 questions to you. One is from Moses Obregon. Did they find the murder weapon yet? I don't believe they have. And I'll throw another question to you from Eddie Sando from Facebook. Did law enforcement follow Kohberger's route after the murders where he went south before he returned to Pullman? I wonder if they found his clothes and the knife.
Well, as far as we know, they haven't found the murder weapon, which they believe to be a K-bar fixed blade knife. I'm assuming they have traveled that route based on what they believe it was from the cell phone pings. But that's a lot of land to cover. There's been a lot of speculation about the Snake River was something placed there. Also, it appeared that his phone was in another part of Idaho the next day. So have they gone to that part of Idaho? I think it's Johnson, Idaho, and looked there. I mean, we're talking about a very circuitous route that they are alleging. It's almost like a U shape to get back from the Moscow area to Pullman, and he went south, west, and then north. So that's a lot of ground to cover. Maybe they have I know they can triangulate and they can do different things with cell phone pings, possibly GPS to pinpoint locations. So because of the gag order, we just don't know. We can't ask those questions. We can ask, but they won't be answered. And the search warrants remain sealed. You're not going to have to get a search warrant to search, a public wooded area or what have you. but I'm sure something like that has probably gone on. Bobby would probably know better than I would on that.
So, Bobby, I'll throw that to you as well, and also throw another question to you. Lucky13 from YouTube, has there been any military link due to the supposed knife used? You know, in that affidavit, they mention that the knife sheath that was left at the crime scene was K-Bar, United States military. This is actually interesting, United States Marine. This is actually interesting because we, Anjanette and I, host the Sidebar podcast, and one of our guests, weeks before the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, suggested it was a possible, K-Bar style knife, and maybe look into military people. And so I haven't seen anything that there's a military link, but Bobby, I throw it to you.
Yeah, first the route. I have no doubt that the investigators have traveled the route. Every route that is on his pings, on his cell phone data, and the video that they captured. I have no doubt that they have step-by-step walked through his entire route that they theorize is his route. And the knife, as far as the knife goes, it's a military-style knife, but you can buy that in an Army-Navy store. You can buy that in a lot of places with the military imprint, the Marine Corps, whatever it be, burned in or imprinted into the sheath. So, yeah, I mean, I think if there was a military connection, certainly if Kohberger had ever served in the military or even tangentially been involved with the military, I think, that would have come out by now. People would have, not only the police, even if they didn't announce it, somebody would have found that in his background. And so I don't think he has a connection to the military. I think he just used what we call a military style knife, because the military does issue that sometimes. I've had a K-Bar knife myself, and it had some military insignia on it because that's the way I bought it. But I think that I haven't seen any. I'd be surprised if it hasn't come out by now. I'd be surprised if it's there.
Jesse, can I just add to that
Sure.
I found them on Amazon the other night. So the K-Bar with the sheath and the USMC emblem and everything. So it seems like they're pretty common. Relatively
easy to purchase. Anjanette, I actually want to throw to something that you did. You did an interview with Shannon Gray, who is the attorney for the Gonsalves family, and something that we addressed earlier, and we're going to get to more of our viewers' questions, but about the surviving roommate seeing the suspect inside of the home. I think this is an interesting perspective from Mr. Gray. Let's take a look.
We all have to remember that she is a victim in this case. I don't know if anybody can, everyone's there to second guess what happened and how she should have or could have reacted. She states I think in the affidavit that she froze in that moment and then went back in her room and ultimately the 911 call wasn't made until later, 8 hours later, I believe, or something along those lines. But who knows? I mean, maybe she saw him and maybe she thought he was going out for a smoke out on the deck and coming back in. Who knows what was going through her mind? But I don't think anybody should be putting any blame or anything on her about anything. And the family feels the same way. She's going through a traumatic incident where she had 4 roommates that were murdered. She was able to garner some information that helped out the affidavit, the identification of the black clothes, of the black mask over his nose, the bushy eyebrows, approximate height, approximate build, very critical to the investigation. I mean, if they bring in a guy that's 6'6" and doesn't match the description, right, then you have a different, but it seems in line with what the defendant looks like in this case to a certain degree. So, and maybe they find dark clothes and they find a dark mask in some of the locations that they've done. So she's really, I think everyone should be praising her for getting an identification and being able to give that solid information there and not look about what she might have or could have done, because we have no idea what mental state she was going through at that time. It's easy to criticize. It's harder to be kind nowadays. So, everybody's got their idea of what could have, should have, or would have done, and just show her some kindness and grace. If I'm pretty sure no one's more critical than she is of herself on things. So I don't think anybody needs to beat her up and anything. And the reality of it is she's providing really great evidence regarding the identification of the defendant in the case. And that's pivotal. I think it is pivotal in a prosecution, having someone that can give an identification of the general, I build and what he looks like and things like that. So
I personally think he's 100% right. I mean, will the opportunity come at a trial for Bryan Kohberger if DM takes the stand for his attorneys to cross-examine what exactly she saw? Why didn't this was reported until 8 hours later? Sure, but at this point, reserve criticism. You don't have the full story about what happened. And Jeanette, I'll throw it to you. What else did you learn from your interview with Mr. Gray?
Well, I just learned that they understand that this is going to be a long process. I mean, look, the homicides happened in November, the arrest in late December. We now have a preliminary hearing set for late June. It could be a long, long haul as they move through this whole process. I mean, the trial, if it goes to trial, may not be for a couple of years. There's a long way to go with this. And it also sounds like the Gonsalveses are just, grateful for seeing an arrest made. They believe that this is the right person. And they also want the death penalty in this case. They believe that is the proper punishment should there be a conviction.
All right, we're going to take more of your questions. Stay with us here on Law and Crime. We'll be right back right after this.